Interesting report. How are you? Greetings to everyone watching. There is a very interesting report that shows in India, in the city of Jaira, they are experiencing a kind of fire that has been burning for centuries. Under that ground, there is coal, large amounts of coal, and for many years, for centuries, as I said, that coal has been burning. So, it's an underground fire that doesn't end, centuries have passed, and the fire continues. There you can see underground how it's red hot, and this is obviously something tremendous. They say that underground there's a subterranean fire that has been burning for at least a century, although there are reports that say even longer. The coal seams are still smoldering beneath the houses and roads, producing a tremendous amount of smoke. It's toxic throughout that area in Yarkand. People breathe that in, and obviously it severely reduces their quality of life. I mean, apart from the usual pollution, they have to live with extra pollution in that part of India. Another thing that draws attention is what's happening right now at the Pentagon, near the Pentagon in the pizzerias. Again, well, it's happening in different pizzerias in the area. There's a spike at Papa John's Pizza, at Domino's Pizza, among others. There's a surge in orders. What does this mean? That there are a lot of people working right now at the Pentagon, and well, they're selling more food than usual because people are ordering it. It could indicate they're moving or preparing something, maybe tied to the Iran issue. That's the belief, but let's get into more details about what's happening. There's a situation, a move that North Korea is making. They're reactivating it again. These are cryptocurrency theft operations, but they have 3 pillars, 3 approaches, according to reports. The same intelligence agencies. In which, well, within what they call chain analysis, those from TRM Labs and other intelligence firms, as well as the Treasury Department and UN intelligence reports. So it has been established what's happening. Unlike amateur hackers, so to speak, I mean the hackers who usually steal information or bitcoins or whatever. For a hacker or a group of hackers, for example, the moves made by the North Korean regime are massive when they commit thefts. We're talking about hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars that they steal in cryptocurrencies. They call it high-end laundering, the money that isn't spent immediately. They use what they call mixes, meaning they mix the cryptocurrencies in different countries to convert them into real money. According to reports from the countries where they're using or doing this mixing, this blend is to, let's say, hide it from investigations and cash it out. Then there's the question of what they do with it. They use countries in Southeast Asia. If we're talking about the Philippines, we're talking about Bangladesh, about different countries in that area. They also go to certain places in Eastern Europe, and there they launder, so to speak, the money from those stolen cryptocurrencies. They report about 50% of what they use, what they need to create the nuclear program, the ballistic missiles, everything related to weapons. North Korea has done this thanks to this kind of cryptocurrency thefts in different parts of the world. And why am I telling you this? Well, because there has been yet another discovery of staggering thefts. The looting of $300 million that has just been detected again. A highly targeted attack on an investment platform called Kelp DAO and the Laser Zero infrastructure has resulted in a theft of approximately between $290 to just over $300 million in assets linked to Ethereum. The incident occurred on April 18, 2026, and is classified as the largest crypto asset cyber attack, at least so far this year. Several critical blockchain servers were attacked and compromised. Let's say, according to these hackers and the reports, Laser Zero, on the list of 9 blocks capital management, would have confirmed this within UN expert panels that would have taken place. Well, we are securing that amount in the face of a tactical evolution of the Lazarus Group. Unlike hacks on individual users, these are cross-chain hacks, meaning they show a level of state sophistication that looks for vulnerabilities and exploits them. Bridges that connect different cryptocurrency networks, it's not a common theft, it's a funded engineering operation. Well, it's what finances the war. the famous one? Well, peer-to-peer exchange, right? I mean, what does this mean? There are models of cryptocurrency exchange where you say, you know what, I don't want to make the sale directly on the platform, but instead I want to sell my crypto to someone else. Person X, I want to sell it to someone I know or even to a stranger. So there are platforms where you can exchange cryptocurrencies. I make a deposit to you, and when you receive the deposit, those cryptos are automatically unlocked and you get them. But in those kinds of sites, they take advantage of system weaknesses and end up taking a lot of money. As far as we know, that North Korean state group alone has taken more than $3 billion in recent years. The global financial system is facing an enemy that's hard to stop. Right now, they don't need to go to any country to steal anything at all. Over the internet, they manage to take those impressive amounts of money. In the end, it's huge resources that they take from different countries and then they convert them into nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, and a pretty advanced nuclear weapons program and weapons programs in general. It's obviously a huge issue, and while North Korea keeps going down that path, it's not good, it's terrible. Obviously, we also see this image that appears to show the moment when two planes were about to collide. This happened in New York, as far as we know, that's the moment. They were about to land, they were at JFK Airport in New York. Apparently, two passenger planes were not well coordinated or something, but there it is. We are watching the moment when the two planes are getting closer. Look at what happens. They get closer, and this plane turns to the left, and this plane is going to turn to the right, right? And they do this, they turn. And well, according to what these two planes say, these passenger planes were forced to abort their landings at JFK Airport in New York after coming dangerously close in the air. This happened on the 20th, but it's only being reported today. According to CBS News, the FAA is investigating this situation. Why did this near collision happen? It's not good, obviously terrible. Let's move on to other important situations as well. An 8,000-kilometer anomaly is being reported, which is expected starting this summer. This is in the ocean, according to expert meteorologists, and we've been following up on this. There are more and more reports and confirmations of what they expect. It could be a pretty harsh climate phenomenon this year, especially when it comes to heat and the excessive storms expected in some regions of the world, as well as heat. Let's say it's beyond what we've experienced in the last 2 decades. Possibly, the 8,000-kilometer phenomenon in the Pacific could transform the climate, increase wildfires, and disrupt ecosystems in different parts of the world. Yes, that's why this phenomenon is important. With this anomaly, which they had said would happen in the fall, now they say it could arrive earlier, during the summer months. It's a gigantic heat wave, and they say it could become a factor causing problems for the global climate. It's in this area of the Pacific, not in this region, but in this zone that stretches from America to Asia, where this will be happening. It's about 8,000 kilometers of a phenomenon, of a climate anomaly, and they say it will have temperatures between 3 to 4.5 degrees Celsius. Degrees Celsius above normal, 3 to 4.5 is a lot. This is considered something extreme, and without recent precedent. That's how serious it is. This is something considered extreme, without recent precedent. That's what meteorologists specialized in this area are reporting. All the way from Micronesia to approximately California. That's, let's say, the phenomenon. We're not going to look at where Micronesia is. We already know where California is. But let's see where Micronesia is so we can get an idea of how much area it covers when seen on the map. Let's see if it's there. Look, it's this area. Let's see if we can put it on the screen. This is Micronesia. Here's Hawaii. Look, from Micronesia, Hawaii, Mexico, United States. Here's Micronesia. So this is the size of the phenomenon, just so we get an idea of how huge this anomaly is. Honestly, well, it's really huge, right? That's the size. Now let's move on to what they consider something exceptional. Experts describe this unprecedented phenomenon as exceptional, with the potential to expand and cover the entire Pacific coast of North America. It would be linked. The El Niño climate phenomenon, which we've already discussed before, would mean that this phenomenon, together with El Niño and its effects, would connect it to broader global changes. The western United States will face a warmer than usual summer. That is, California, Baja California, Mexico, Sonora, Sinaloa, Oregon, the entire coastal area, let's say, from California down to Guatemala, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and so on. We would experience harsher heat this summer in 2026, right? A more active than normal hurricane season is also expected in the Pacific, with a higher chance of storms impacting areas like California, for example. So, prevention is key. You live in California? Well, you should prepare the classic emergency supply kit. Well, we have plenty of time, so every week when you go to the supermarket, you buy a few extra things, a few each week, every week. You buy yourself a plastic box, like a storage container, but you choose the size depending on your family's needs. And you start collecting extras, you keep adding extras, of non-perishable food, obviously batteries, a radio. If possible, get a radio with plenty of batteries, a battery charger, all that kind of stuff, flashlights, all those things you already know. And by the time summer comes, you'll have the box full of supplies perfectly ready. That's it. Highly recommended for the community that lives near the coast or says, hey, I don't live right on the coast, but I live 100 kilometers away. Hey, storms can easily reach that far. Well, here in Nuevo León, we're hundreds of kilometers from the coast. The hurricanes from the Gulf usually hit us here and they arrive as tropical storms, but even so, they cause a huge problem for you. Those who live over there in Houston, and we're talking about the Gulf here, but right now, you also have to be prepared if you live on the Gulf, if you live on the Pacific side too, and even more so now. Because of this phenomenon, marine species have less ability to adapt in coastal areas, increasing the risk of mortality and ecosystem collapse on the Pacific coasts. So that's another issue, another possible problem for the fauna and flora of the Pacific. The event is not isolated. This is the second major marine heat wave in recent years, but this one appears to be bigger. This is a clear acceleration of climate change. According to these scientists, these are phenomena that will become more frequent, intense, and difficult to predict in the future. The combination of warming ocean patterns and atmospheric conditions is creating a scenario of high climate vulnerability, according to the report. And this, well, take it into account, or don't take it into account, please. We'll be updating anyway. Whatever NOAA says, the extra stuff, because this is what NOAA says. By the way, Dylan Amaya, a researcher at NOAA, well, this is part of what he mentions, especially in these studies they've done. Well, let's move on to other important matters about what's happening in the world. Just before anything else, let me tell you that the seismic movements from that 7 magnitude earthquake in Japan, was it 7.4? They have continued happening today, right? There we see the dates. Several of them are from April 22nd, right? But it's just in the same area. There they are, look. There from the 22nd there, the last 3 earthquakes except for the 5.3 that happened yesterday. The 5.0, the 4.5, and the 4.2 were today. This is off the Pacific coast, but in Japan, that was the same area where the 7.4 happened. By the way, I want to send greetings to Marcia Alexander, who sent us a comment about what happened over there in Taiwan. Although I don't have the report here anymore. No, it's not updated. They don't post it. Over there in Taiwan, there was an earthquake of 4, a little over 4, that was felt in Taipei over there. And well, just so you know, we're also keeping an eye on that. It's part of what's happening, as people have been saying. Greetings, Raul Omar. Hello, Aurelio. How have you been? Thank you so much to all the students. They gave a like, and if you haven't done it yet, please go ahead and give it a like, share, or, comment. Thank you so much, Raul Sachs MTK. Big hello. Mercedes, thank you so much for your support. Mercedes, a huge greeting. Jose Zarate as well. A big hello. How have you been? Thank you so much for being here. And well, let's move on to other matters, other interesting topics about what's happening in the world. Let's go with that. There is a chemical that is showing up, a type of drug, basically, that is appearing in the United States, which is basically a chemical used to put elephants to sleep. Just imagine the craziness of that kind of chemical, which is now surpassing fentanyl sales. It's replacing fentanyl. And that's very concerning, especially for the United States, because that's where it's happening in a much harsher way. The resurgence of what they call carfentanil. Carfentanil is an extremely strong opioid, but extremely strong. Just so you can get an idea of how strong it is. Its toxicity is 10,000 times greater. It's 10,000 times stronger than morphine. When you mention morphine, you mean some serious stuff, right? Well, just imagine 10,000 times more. It's crazy. No. But to put it in perspective, it's 100 times more than fentanyl and 10,000 times more than morphine. Total madness. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration in the US, reports they have identified 1,400 seizures of carfentanil. Honestly, it's impressive. According to the reports, the seizures have far surpassed those of other years like in 2023, but there were 145 cases in 2023. In 2022, there were 54 cases. This last year, 2025 last year, 2,400 cases. Many more cases than in previous years, and 2026 seems to be heading that way too. According to what Frank Tolentino, head of DEA operations for the Northeast region, says, as cited by various international media outlets, they claim that this was developed as a veterinary tranquilizer for elephants and large animals. Its use in humans is obviously lethal, even in the smallest doses. Researchers and authorities emphasize the link between the emergence of this substance in the US market. The recent actions by the Chinese government against the sale of chemical precursors used to make fentanyl have caused other things to start emerging. Other types of drugs, so to speak. It's a concerning issue, obviously, according to what the DEA itself says, which has documented large seizures of this substance in recent months. In October, for example, there was a seizure of 628,000 pills of this type. Just imagine that. 628, a really tough issue. It's a huge problem that still exists, and as long as there are consumers, there will be someone who wants to sell it. This issue needs to be addressed with the people clearly involved in these practices, because otherwise it's really serious. Another issue that's also like this. Well, it's kind of geopolitical and kind of curious. Honestly, no. Imagine if there were a place called Donilandia. Well, that's what has been thought about by some people. From Ukraine. To name a place Donilandia over there in Ukraine. Obviously not. Well, don't make me shave Donald Trump's beard. And this. And well, Ukraine has proposed renaming part of the Donbas as Donilandia, according to what's being reported right now in a topic that has caused laughter and generated controversy. And well, that's where your opinions come in. I mean, at the end of the day, you say that's a topic they already know how to handle, right? Not like this Donald Trump. And the name is postponed without much importance, maybe for a street or something. They don't use Donilandia to get people excited, not the Gulf of Donald. They don't put that there or anything like that. Let's see if, well, maybe they get along better or get more support or whatever. No, the point is that right now they've brought this up. The negotiators from Ukraine have proposed renaming part of the Donbas as Donilandia or Donilandia in an attempt to win the favor of the President of the United States, according to reports from the New York Times. In recent months, the negotiators have continued referring to this disputed region in eastern Ukraine as Donilandia, an area that, by the way, is now, well, in conflict, let's say, between Ukraine and Russia. It's a huge issue right at the heart of the division, so to speak. Another thing that grabs my attention during all this back and forth. There's a report. What I'm about to talk about is pretty crazy, but it's a report released by a former CIA agent. We're not going to discuss it right now. Today we're going to talk about that situation, right? Because if it is, maybe this should be the headline of this video. We'll just talk about it right now. Before talking about what it is, what this former CIA agent says. Let me share a few things before we get to that. We'll get to that topic in a moment. Let me just check on the oil situation and a few other topics, and then we'll get to that, right? According to what they're showing, both are about to reach $102. They're about the same as we saw a little while ago, a little higher. 101.86, almost about to jump to 102, right? This just shows that there's still a tension, that they're still thinking maybe the conflict will go on. That's also an important part. Well, among what's been reported over the last few days, some curious, interesting things. It's striking that in the United States, Donald Trump wants to keep the Tosca, a ship that was trying to cross, supposedly carrying weapons or products they have. Components for weapons, for ballistic missiles made by Iran, right? And now Donald Trump has proposed keeping it as spoils of war. So the concept of spoils of war is back up for debate. This is due to some comments Donald Trump made about keeping that ship, claiming it would be spoils of war. A concept from maritime law that has reopened the debate about legality, especially regarding the incident with this ship. Not about taking this ship, by the way. Captured for trying to break a blockade. A blockade imposed by the United States and by Iran. And now the Americans have taken the ship and say they're thinking about keeping it. It hasn't been decided yet. Besides, this is a ship that was already considered illegal, at least according to the United States Department of the Treasury. And with that, they say, well, it's possible that they're going to go and seize it. This development has obviously generated criticism. It has sparked a debate about what should be done with that type of vessel. Warnings were issued for 6 hours. The ship did not want to comply with the orders. The destroyer fired at the vessel to disable it. Afterwards, the Marines went in, boarded the ship from helicopters, and well, they took the ship. That also draws attention. It's good. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, let's hear what a former CIA agent has to say about something that was about to change the world in a very dramatic way. Let's get into that. A former CIA agent claims that Donald Trump was about to apparently launch a nuclear weapon. It's a topic that has generated controversy. Several media outlets have covered it precisely because of this conversation. This comes up in a podcast. A former CIA agent reveals this. Let's get into the details. First, who says this? Well, the claim is based on a series of comments made by a former CIA officer named Larry Johnson. On April 20th, 2 days ago, he appeared on a podcast called Jogging Freedom. A podcast, almost like a YouTube talk show hosted by the former Fox News legal analyst named Andrew Neapolitan. Well, he interviews Larry Johnson, a former CIA agent who claimed that in an emergency session at the White House, it was decided. So they spoke with Director Dan Cain, Dan Cain. He is the general, the head of the United States Joint Chiefs of Staff. They claim that he, Trump, and several others were there. And what? Well, no. De esta situación, ante the idea of having the codes ready to launch a nuclear attack, this Cain, the chief of the Presidential General Staff, the top military chief, simply said no, that it couldn't be done. According to Johnson, in the exchange there was apparently a big argument. General Cain gave a total refusal. No, he was asking him for the codes. He has part of the codes. He is one of those who has part of the nuclear codes, and they told him to, well, to hand over the codes, apparently, well, to Trump. And he totally refused. As supposed evidence, he included images of Kane walking on the grounds of the White House. Here we showed you those images. Do you remember that we told you, hey, something strange is happening at the White House? General Kane is arriving at the White House. It's something strange. Something is going on there. Supposedly, they were asking him to have the codes. Did he want to launch a nuclear weapon, or what are we talking about? However, US media outlets like Newsweek have published that so far, this information has not been corroborated. I mean, at least not independently from this report. The only information available is from this former CIA agent. So far, no corroboration of this information has been found. They haven't tried to verify it by other means, and they haven't been able to. Some members of the Republican Party have also expressed their skepticism about the accusation made by this CIA official. They simply say they can't believe it. Now whether it's true or not, I don't know. But it's being said by a former CIA agent who supposedly has privileged information, and they have, let's say, direct data from his colleagues who supposedly revealed this information to him. What we do have is that, in fact, the general really was there. We talked about that here. In fact, there were images circulating of the general with a tremendously worried look on his face walking through the White House. We thought it was strange, so we included a brief mention in our report to highlight it. The statement can't be taken as 100% certain because in the end, more would be needed, especially because it's a very serious matter, so you would have to wait for more information. But Larry Johnson, the former CIA officer, he was Deputy Director of the Office of Counterterrorism at the U.S. Department of State between 1989 and 1993. But in recent years, he has also made a lot of very controversial statements, so maybe we've kind of lost him a bit. I mean, sometimes he seems to lose track or something, so it's not like that we can trust this person. He has already been criticized, and it's already been said that he has given information that is supposedly real, and then later, they weren't true after all, they were false. Or that they could never be verified. So, well, the thing is that it's controversial. This person makes this statement. We can call it strange or not. The statement is there. Hopefully that's not the case, because if it is, to what level would we be escalating the conflict? That would be really tough. By the way, take a look at this image. It's a really crazy image because it's a building that the Chinese have built. It's this one. Look, it even looks like her. Honestly, no. But it didn't say. This mega structure in China, which has amazed people because of its strangeness. No, honestly, it's not pretty. If you ask me, I don't like it. No, not like that. The exterior design isn't, but the interior is interesting. Because inside, those things that look like they're lying down are actually several buildings joined together, and then there are some bigger things sticking out on top. But that thing right there in the middle is like a building lying on its side, so to speak. Inside, it's spectacular. It's a giant garden. I mean, right in the middle of all the buildings, there's a garden with huge trees. And this is super interesting. It has trees, it has some crazy pools. Inside, it's something else. Yes. Well, this mega construction really stands out. The horizontal building alone is about 300 meters long, sitting on top of 4 buildings underneath, along with other buildings that are in the back part, let's say. But the 4 buildings are connected by this garden with pools on the top part. They claim that they have broken several records in engineering innovation with a cylindrical structure placed on top of these skyscrapers that are over 250 meters tall. This is in the city of Xionging, which is the most populated city in China. By the way, the horizontal skyscraper is nicknamed the skyscraper, and they call it the crystal or the glass. It's not something absurdly strange, not something that... Well, they claim that this is a glass tunnel, basically housing a 1,500 square meter roof dedicated to tourism and culture, and it stretches for about 300 meters and rises 250 meters above the ground. It's estimated that its weight exceeds just the weight of what's on top of this. It surpasses the Eiffel Tower, for example, but not in weight. That is more than 12,000 tons of weight in that area, apart from the weight of the buildings themselves. Well, one of those curious things. He wanted to present that day. And by the way, another topic that draws attention is the following. Check it out. Reports say there would be a meeting between North Korea and the Iranians. From what we know, I don't know, this is the image they've been publishing. Shu Shan-ik, special envoy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of North Korea. He met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran. This is Abbas Aragash. South Korea supported the United States and now North Korea. Well, North Korea supports Iran. It's the classic, right? Well, there you have it. Look, there they are. In this meeting, they're showing the closeness that could exist between these two countries. Abbas Aragashi on the left, the North Koreans on the right. And well, that's where they show that geopolitics is constant, right? There are constantly realignments, alliances getting stronger, and so on and so forth. Well, that's how it is. Let's move on to the comments. How have you all been? How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us today. A big greeting to everyone watching us today, Wednesday, April 22nd. Thank you so much for being here with us. Let's get into the details. How's it going for you all? The live stream is on now if you want to watch. The Congress broadcast is happening. They're talking over there about this whole CIA case, right? About CIA agents who were here. It became known here because they had an accident where some Mexicans died, some CIA agents died, and right now they're debating this situation in the Mexican Congress, right? They're sharing opinions and going back and forth. You know how it is. Felipe, how have you been? He says hello from Chile and asks, is it true the White House will become a business? Yes, we discussed that here too. I don't know if you didn't get the report, maybe it didn't reach you, but we talked about it here a few moments ago and gave the details in case you want to check the report. We already provided the full report on how the evacuation went. And also, well, about what is known so far, right? There it is, look. Emergency at the White House? Yes, there was an emergency. It's not exactly known to what extent, right? But as we mentioned, it's about this man who enters or jumps over a fence, right? At the White House. And that's where all this commotion starts. We talked about it at the time, but when it's just a short video, once the video ends, we have exactly what happened as far as we know, right? That topic hasn't changed much so far, right? But yes, it did happen. It was an area. You see how they have tents there, right? So they have some tents where the journalists are. And, well, I have several there. I follow several journalists from various countries in Washington, since if that happens, you'll know fast, right? Yes, I checked right away. I went to see what was happening when I heard, and everyone was reporting they'd been moved, right? They put them all in a room, like a press room, but smaller, not open to the public, and from there you could see everyone's individual accounts, right? That was really crazy. It didn't get worse, but yes, it was an emergency, right? I assume they're investigating what happened and what that person intended. Hey, cheers, where there's debauchery because he told me it was a predictive programming movie. He says it's crazy to launch in New York so early. They did it in a cube. Which side will be the first to pull the trigger? That's the thing, right? Who's going to be the first, right? They say it's not if but when it'll happen, and who will do it? That's the real question. Greetings, Don Draper. How have you been, Julian? How are you? Greetings to Spain. It's 9 at night. And what time is it in Iran now? I think it's an hour later, right? Oh, well, but since we don't have it anymore, it's 10:54. We don't have this ultimatum anymore. There's no date. It's like there's a ceasefire whenever you feel like it, right? We're just going to see what happens, right? Hello, Carlos. How have you been? Felipe Carlos Don MT. Greetings to Mercedes. How have you been? Greetings to everyone. Jose Zarate. How are you doing? Same name as me. Mercedes, thank you very much for your support. Mercedes, big shout out. Aurelio, huge shout out to you too. All the disappearances are really tough. Greetings. Yes, it's tremendous. There's a map. que I'm holding off on it a bit so we can talk about it next time. We'll see it in the update version, but it's a map that shows where everything estaban las personas de los. Greetings. I'll put it here, but we'll analyze it more thoroughly later. But it's this map that shows where said. They fabricate the appearances of these scientists, right? And if you notice, some of them almost coincide in the same area, right? I mean, there are the appearances. Only Nuno Loureiro and Jason Thomas are here in the northeast area, over there in Rhode Island, but the others are already, well, in California, New Mexico, right? Alabama, etc., right? But mainly New Mexico and California, basically. That's the area, and that's where, well, this whole missing person thing is really crazy, honestly. I mean, it is like, even up to these recent days, there's still a certain effort to say, no, 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 these are separate cases. I mean, yeah, I don't doubt that Nuno Loureiro or the cases that are medical issues are probably something else, but the ones that are related to the same base and nuclear issues, those two below could be like two groups, right? The nuclear stuff is one thing and the aerospace stuff is another, maybe, right? And then the rest, the medical stuff is separate, the energy and fission and all that stuff that Nuno Loureiro was working on, well, that would be something else entirely, right? At least the stuff in the southern United States is the craziest part, right? And see who really had insider information, right? Because not all of them are scientists, honestly. I mean, some are administrative staff. They call them scientists, but not all of them are scientists. We've listed each person's position, and some aren't related to science. They're in administrative areas. Some of them did have important information, some didn't. That's another area. We need to clarify it there. Well, greetings to Raul Sachs and also to Marisol. Good afternoon, everyone. Great. Well, we'll keep talking later, right? We'll keep chatting later. Take care. Have an excellent day. See you later. Goodbye.